Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thug. Changed a few things around, got the camera set up in a couple of different places, but let's not spend too much time on that. Shout out to everybody in here. Appreciate seeing all you guys in here. A lot of good things actually over the last couple of days. I know people are probably wondering where have I been. I had to take care of my daughter. We lost a babysitter essentially. My brother got out of prison. I've had a lot of personal family stuff going on, so that is why I have not been seen for the last couple of days. Obviously, I've been wanting and been dying to cover a lot of this stuff, especially because nobody knows what the hell is going on. So on those fronts, we're going to cover quite a bit. I know everybody is probably dying to know what my thoughts are on Nick's positioning, especially because everybody knows me as the Nick Fuentes orbiter, or Groiper, if you will. So I don't know how many of you there are that's probably curious what I will say about his positioning. I know that's been the very confusing aspect of all of this. For the good news, though, is that I think ultimately one of our own, Mr. Zeb Boykin, along with Josh VanDerNoord, I believe he has basically broken open or blown open a new angle to all of this that kind of steps a bit away from both of the kind of current narratives. So you have the official narrative from the government, which is seemingly what Nick is more aligned with, although I don't believe he is 100% buying what they are selling. Then you have the "it was Israel" narrative, which is the second one. I am telling you right now, as it sits right now, I do not know which direction I lean. I don't think there's enough evidence for either side right now. I just don't. So let's zoom out a little bit. A lot of people, especially people who are close to me in the space, were very, very curious why Nick supposedly took this positioning. I think there is an element of it that it could be strategic. I'll be honest about that. I think there's an element that this is the best position he could take, strategically speaking. I don't even know if he believes what he's saying, to be honest with you. But I do suspect there is some strong element of him that surmises this pro-Israel push has some synthetic nature to it. And I think you can look at that just by the accusers, right? Judge it by the accusers. So I think when you look at all of the people who are pushing the Israel did it narrative, that by itself draws questions. So what I think we shouldn't do is forget all of what has happened in the last 5-6 years for the short-term memory of what's happened in the last 10, 12, 14 days. And I think we are getting a lot of that. And I think what we're getting from that is a lot of what do they call it? Mythologicalization. They're basically giving a story to Charlie Kirk that ultimately isn't 100% telling the story. Now, I know that may bother some people that I've not, I don't know. I have a conclusion. Who knows if you guys will like it, but I am telling you right now, I can't come off of the fence yet. I've not seen enough on either side. What I will tell you conclusively is that the government is lying to you, and whatever the Israel angle is not 100% accurate. And again, everything revolves around incentive structure. So I think the question then is, who or what is benefiting? How much did I get paid? The conversation's not going to steer away from Israel. What I would like to focus on is going to be what we do see happening. What is happening? And I think we have some tells from Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Some of the first things that come out of the mouth of Pam Bondi in an effort to any kind of actionable aspect of what we're going to do after this is hate speech. We got hate speech, hate speech, hate speech. Now, not surprising, but I'm glad we got a lot of conservatives like 9mm SMG, the kind of normie conservatives, if you will, like Bad Obigo and all of those guys, those anon accounts, they're chimping out about it, and rightly so, calling for Pam Bondi to be fired. I believe Matt Walsh also had a piece of this. What I will tell you is, this is a conclusion that has a bit of substance to it. While I don't know or don't think I've seen enough to say I believe Israel is complicit, what I do think is ultimately going to happen is, in lockstep with Project Esther, whether they are involved or not, they're going to take advantage of it to implement free speech laws in the light of anti-Semitism. And the more that I kind of even thought about that, you would think, well, at some point would this guy not have some claim to being from Iran, right? Would you not have expected that possibly there'd be some kind of like, they'd find his turban was left on the roof, right? That's when I would kind of think on those elements. But just given what we saw from Pam Bondi, now maybe this is just because Pam Bondi's a woman and she's just retarded. But that's kind of what I took away from it, was our speech is up in the air right now. And you could see that a little bit now. It's died down some, but I do think right after the fact, the majority of Republicans and conservatives were willing to go, F free speech, whatever it takes to get the left, to quiet the left and silence the left. And I agree and disagree on the same token. I agree in the aspect that there does need to be consequences and cost, but at the same time, how far removed are we from the Patriot Act? There is an element there where I am hesitant to give the government, definitely the Trump administration, any element of extra power, especially in times of a crisis. We know how that goes. So I'm just naturally hesitant to it, in terms of a behavioral pattern and pattern recognition in general from the government. What I will say, everyone is saying it's obvious it's Mossad. I think it's obvious that we're being lied to. And the bone to pick I have with Nick actually is on the element of it being true. I then question, so if it's true, then why aren't we getting this full transparency? Right? Now, the little bit of defense I would give for Nick is the fact that he did say, I think it was at the end of his stream last night, he said he'd be open to any evidence. He'd be open if there was some overwhelming evidence. I think there's a major thing going on. Now, not to say that it's ego, but I do think there's an element of when Nick sees that it's Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson leading the front of Israel did it, that might automatically set some bells off that puts him in a position where he feels like he needs to be hesitant to take that spot. You would think. I think currently right now, the narrative seems to be the majority of people, especially in the dissident right, are of the belief that it is Mossad or Israel or some level of foreign involvement. Now, I'm not denying any of this, and I'll be upfront with you. I simply don't know. And also to take with a grain of salt, like I've been MIA for the last 3 days trying to read X between, the Cheerios and the blueberries from my taking care of my daughter. So I want to explore some of the stuff that I think we do know, because I think that you could ultimately speculate forever, and what are you going to have at the end of the day if we continue to speculate? It's good work. I think that there should be people who are continually speculating. I think Candace Owens may ultimately find some camera angle or something like that may open another hole in the story. I think that is necessary. But at the same time, it hinges upon how much we can get from the authorities. It hinges on how much can, Steven Crowder, I thought that was funny. Nick said, this guy's got a link to the NSA. It also depends with Crowder, in those people who are able to turn over the internal documents, it depends on what we are able to actually get from them and have as surefire evidence. But how much can you trust the authorities? I mean, you can't at all. And that's kind of the spot we're put in. And so I got to be honest, there's something in the air. I don't know what it is. I just know that I'm being lied to. And I will be honest with you, I too, like many of you, was also a little astonished at not the fact that he was, if he had just left it at, I'm unconvinced it was Israel, that would be one thing. But it was going above and beyond to dispute it as if it was a schizophrenic kind of idea, I think is ignorant to the current environment. And again, the mass noticing that's been going on that he's been leading. So Maybe it's an aspect of a lack of self-awareness, or is it truly that maybe he does ultimately feel a strong fear and is now choosing it with very strong intention what word will come out of his mouth every step on from here on out? There is some element to that. So I'm not. So you're not going to get you're not going to get a disavowal from me. That's for sure. Not going to get anything like that. But what I will say is I am not convinced from Nick's argument either. I'm not going to sit here and tell you need to believe the official narrative. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to lean that direction either. I am generally of the belief that I think that the fact that we were presented with two options, like almost right off the bat, that it's neither. It was like within 2 days, it was like, okay, it's either this or this. So if they're telling you to look, it's either left or right, it's probably on the floor or on the ceiling. That's the way these things go. And I think when you look at the nature of any political assassination that's been major, like on the grounds that this has been, from MLK to JFK to, you can go down the line. A lot of the recent ones typically had some three-letter agency involvement into it. But if you do go a bit further beyond that, I think it was McKinley was shot at like point blank. And that was somebody who was just, very angry and irritated at his politics. I believe he was like handing out flowers or something. It was like a president from Ohio. I don't know if he even served a full term. So these tensions have existed in the past. With the combination of what we got from the Discord logs and the synthetic feeling of all of it, that almost everybody had talking points ready to go, I am not sure what to do with it. So what we will do is we're going to take a huge bite out of what Owen Shroyer and Zeb Boykin did talk about. Yeah, Groyper confirmed. I am a Groyper. I don't know. I'll probably take a bunch of shit for, the fact that I am not in lockstep with where Nick is at. But I'm not going to lie to you guys about what my own intuition is telling me. And I am my own entity, to be honest. So Zeb Boykin, let's move on to some bit more positive stuff. Zeb Boykin and Josh VanDerNoord are blowing up, if you will. They flew past me. I believe they were a little bit beyond 3,000 subscribers as of 2 days ago. And Zeb took it upon himself, as the former sniper that he is, to give his take, which he thinks is that what we're being told is a complete lie. Now, I don't know how much Zeb has posited for his positive theory of who he thinks actually did it, who's behind it. I think he's largely basically just left it at the door of he knows what's not true. And I think that's a great, great way to open it up, because people are obviously going to listen a bit more if you're not kind of posing things in. Obviously, you could tell that guy looks like he spurred out and left the chat already. There was a few conclusive things from there, and I agree with Zeb. I do agree with Zeb. And we can go to some of the tweets. There are some strong and very influential people who are disagreeing with Zeb. Zeb is getting blocked by a lot of other ballistic individuals. It's like it's and I'll tell you what, I don't trust anybody anymore. I really don't. Like I trust Zeb and people like John Ward, but I just don't. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. Like what am I supposed to go off of? I just can't. And so if I'm trying to build some level of trust or belief or, off of something, and I have to keep taking into account, well, this person was involved in this. This person lied about this. Well, this person also did this. It gets so muddy so quickly, and it's like, so take everything with a grain of salt. That's for sure. So Zeb Boykin had Owen Shroyer on earlier today, or maybe it was the other way around. They both were streaming at the same time, but, they interviewed each other. That was awesome. And Owen Shroyer is taking flack because Owen Shroyer, ultimately not in the camp of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson per se, but he is open to the idea that he thinks that it is not anything close to the official narrative. So this video that went viral basically explains the ballistics. And let me get this first photo up, actually, because it'll be easier to describe this with this photo here. So what you're going to see here is, this is a tweet from Owen Shroyer, which they talked about later on with Zeb today, is that there's this camera positioned directly behind Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm sure, like many of you probably have already seen, there is a video of this individual who is taking the camera. It's like the first thing that happens. There's like this chubbier looking guy goes up right behind, takes the camera down. Now, I don't know if he pulled the SD card out. It seems to be determined by Owen, and from what I heard from them, from both of those guys, that the SD card was removed from the camera. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but we do know that that camera was one of the first things that was touched. Then beyond that, we have right below it the second aspect, which is his neck being blown out. Now, the official narrative is that this is actually the entry wound. Zeb's arguing that's the complete opposite. Zeb is arguing, in fact, that this is the exit wound. And in fact, it's the complete inverse. Now, the angling and the argumentation I'll leave to Zeb. You can find that on Zeb's channel Outside the Overton if you want to watch that. It's the video that's got like 1 million views on it now. But that's kind of the debate and some more conclusive points from there. Now, in this by itself, you can see a lot of these individuals. So Amir King, I don't really care what this guy says. This guy's like not even pro-right in the slightest. I don't even know if he's Christian. Chris Loesch, whose wife was a part of, Calendar Gate and a swimsuit model and all that, disagrees. Jeff Carlson agrees. Zeb Boykin mentioned there. And you have a few others. So there's a lot of these guys who are kind of saying no. Even Ezra, one of the individuals, the producers from Died Suddenly, is actually in disagreement with Zeb. He believes a bit of the official narrative too. So the conclusive points from there, and we'll watch a bit of the interview, I have it here, is then again, there's a cleanup crew that comes after the fact. Now, what you might have only seen so far is that there's a video or a photo floating around that there is cleanup happening at the construction site. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense. Why is there construction happening literally right after, right? So Zeb actually thinks the construction is because, and there's a second angle which I'll show it on video, that he believes that you can see the exact window that was struck and the construction is there to replace the shattered glass. And then beyond that, the other aspect is, if that is the entry wound, then the reality is, off of all the blood that we've seen, that it should be painting the back. It should have gone out the back, not the side. And also, you should be able to see even slight bits of blood splatter, none of which is visible. And what they're going to argue, even on top of that, Zeb and Owen, is that they believe what you do see kind of flip up a little bit is a part of the wire that connects his microphone. The other conclusive aspect is Charlie Kirk wasn't wearing body armor. Now, this is what I will say. When I sat down with Zeb, John Ward, and Deacon over with 3CC, after we were live, they showed a bit more of the photos, some of which that they didn't even want to, share on YouTube Live. And if you do look at some of the other like high 4K images of Kirk from that day, there's no body armor visible. So unless he materialized it underneath himself when he was visible from cameras everywhere, there's just no. So I am of the disbelief that it is at all wearing body armor and that it wasn't a ricochet or fragmented at all, which is you would need the body armor or something there, which body armor would be it, for it to cause this ricochet to make sense why the direct front shot hitting him. And again, this is why you leave it up to the ballistics guys, and also why, again, it's very curious that a lot of these guys are blocking each other, going back and forth. Then you have, there's this aspect of Brandon Herrera who came in a little bit later, and we'll cover that. So we'll just get the video up here. But just to give you some of the conclusive points there as well. And the other big thing too is, I didn't catch it from Zeb in his video, but I caught it from his session here with Owen Shroyer. He doesn't even believe that it's 30-06. He believes the caliber based on the sound and what he's seeing, that it's actually more lined up with a 5.56, which is a smaller round. For those who aren't familiar, I can put a photo up here. This is the 5.56 is on the left-hand side, 30-06 on the right-hand side. 30-06 being much, much bigger, largely just the fact that Zeb is arguing along with Deacon and a few other people that if it was 30-06, like Charlie basically shouldn't have a head. That's the amount of damage that should have happened. And we're not seeing that. And again, a lot of these things build up, which is, doesn't make sense, coincidence, and everything kind of builds on itself. And there you have it. Nobody believes what's going on. So then the question does remain, well, then if it's not the official narrative, then who did it and why? Well, then I think that's the pivotal question, is why? So if it was just hatred, if it was just this deranged lunatic, that's harder to explain away. Because if it was just hatred, you don't need to make much logical sense of it. Now, if you do have an actual reason, which is being proposed by the Israel narrative side, it's not to say like I'm disagreeing with them. Their argument, though, is the reason why they took him out was because Charlie was going to turn on Israel. So there's the motive they're outlining there. Now, I do agree. I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. I'm somebody who was covering a bunch of Charlie Kirk leading up to this. This is, what's the 3006 on that picture? It's just to show the massive size difference there. And the fact that Zeb believes it was a much smaller round. He believes if it was 30-06, you would have got a lot more damage. But the 30-06 is much bigger. It's like triple the size. It's just a lot of hearsay. But there's clear motive being presented by the pro-Israel argument. Clear motive. I disagree, though, that it's clear. I disagree even that I think that Charlie was pivoting entirely. He may have been beginning to open his mind to the ideas of some of this, but I mean, does anyone in here seriously buy the fact that J.D. Vance was a never-Trumper, and then by the grace of God, someone just had a conversation with him and he was like, oh yeah, Trump's actually not a big Nazi racist? Like, come on, like, I don't buy that. Like, I find, for the J.D. Vance, like, I find that to be a strong expression of who he is. It's a strong expression of his character. He's a liar. You don't make it to 30-some years old being in venture capital, surrounded by all these individuals, and you think that Trump is a Hitler-like figure, right? I think any grown man at that age would have a strong idea of, like, if you would have ended up like that and you were in that temperate, right? You're probably some ignorant leftist liberal who doesn't pay attention, doesn't know any better, and has no morals. The same way that I look at Charlie Kirk, and it's not like October 7th was the first day he entered politics. The Zionist lobby has been funding this guy ever since he basically started TPUSA. And so I do think that there is a possibility that what's happened from October 7th, and maybe a lot of the chatter from the people on the younger side in his smaller chapters, but I'm not convinced that Charlie was about to become the second coming of Nick Fuentes, and he was going to be collabing with Myron Gaines and talking about Jewish power. Like, that's the thing that I think is being like it's being a mythos, right? It's like what happened in World War II is happening right now. It's like, we all know Charlie Kirk wasn't like that, but why is all the history being presented that way? Not to take away from Kirk. I like Kirk. I think he did good. But it's to say that I think what's being presented by the Israel crowd is going so far and beyond. It's painting Kirk as somebody who he wasn't. And I think that gives me reason to pause. And again, how quickly are we going to move off of the fact that Candace Owens is like this, had a massively just awkward and very just retarded moment, to be quite frankly with you, and off the back of Tucker Carlson being exposed for his 3-letter agency involvement, as well as his ability to carry water for the establishment. Like, I just think that so many of people in here and people in general are they're just losing sight of it. They're losing sight of the overall. Now, to be fair, a moment like this, I don't blame you for getting, very tunnel visioned on something. But I do think you have to not lose yourself in the one story that's happened for the sake of everything else in the entire preponderance of evidence that we have. I am curious, though, about that $150 million deal that was turned down. And it's not to say like there's not evidence that's on the Israel side. I think there's a lot of evidence. It's just that the timeline, and I even said this when it happened, the timeline does not make sense. It happened too quickly, too publicly, too overtly. And this same kind of group, this establishment, this Mossad, this agency, we're going to ascribe to it. Think about this. We're going to ascribe it that it's doing all these extreme nefarious things. It's running all these programs. And I agree, right? Project Esther. I think there's a lot of truth to this. But at the same time, they just wouldn't poison the guy. They're going to do it so publicly. So then the counter to that would be, okay, maybe it's about sending a message. And I have heard this, and I forget who I heard it from. Maybe it was about sending a message to Trump saying this could have been you. That I could buy. Like, I think that might be the strongest believable thing about that. But at the same time, I can't sit here and think they would do something given the climate we are in, right? They are on the verge of losing support in America forever. And you think that this group that's had this much power for this long at the heights it's had is going to just throw it all away in a super public moment? No, perhaps maybe Netanyahu got mad and he sent the kill order, and that's what happened. And it was a brash decision. I just can't buy that. I can't buy that we all sat here for the last how many years and have gone, yep, they're doing this, they're playing these sly games, the way they have this Hasbara, the way they kind of, all these systems play in place, and then boom, nope, here it is, they're going to just do something this blatantly obvious. That's the part I can't buy. It's not to say that I would sit here and deny it if there's more evidence presented. I'm just saying I need more. I need more. But that is definitely not to say I am taking the Trump administration at their word. Lord have mercy. Kash Patel, Lord have mercy, dude. He needs deported first. I would gladly actually accept an extra 1 million immigrants just if I could personally be the last person who got to speak to Kash as the boat was sent to India. This guy is just something. So let's go to the video, though. Let's go to the video. I'll let you see it and hear it from Owen and Zeb themselves. I have the timestamps. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to clear this up a little bit. So the first part is the cleanup crew. So the part that don't have timestamp, but it's pretty easy to get the idea. Can we stop the count and stay on episode 88 for a little longer? That's funny. That's actually funny. Fine by me. I'll make the next 4 episode 88. People be so confused. Well, those who know won't, but if this is the first point is from Zeb, this is the first contention, the first conclusive contention. If the front is the entry wound, the back wall should be painted, and it is not. The second point is the cleanup crew. Now, this one is what we do need some visuals for, and I think it's important to have them. So it's going to be at the 9-minute and 29-second mark. So let me find it here. Pull back a little bit. I'm just going to get it into where they get it in view here. Probably start around the 9-minute mark, and they're going to talk about this window that is busted that you can see in screen here. Pull back 8.5-minute mark. Go ahead and let it rip. With my big head out of the way.
And the bullet to be up here. We're rolling here. Okay, we have cleanup. The question that I will probably get from this, the problem is everything everybody sends me, I already thought about. I would prefer you send me something that I have it. That would be great. Anyway, the entire wall of windows had this on it. This is, I don't know why they're ripping this off of the glass. This image is really the only one that I've seen that has this, the guy in this spot where we would expect the bullet to be. So, we're looking at bullet recovery, possibly. I would argue yes. The question is, why are we ripping all of it down? And I would argue that it probably broke glass, and I'm not saying it shattered it. I'm saying it probably broke it. It sent through. It's probably not moving fast enough to go entirely through. It might have cracked it or whatever. Anyway, that being said, they have to replace the glass. I would like to see if anybody saw glass replacement. And the reason they would be ripping this down is because they wouldn't be able to replace the glass.
Why are they dealing with that glass? What does that glass have to do with anything? That seems out of the possibility for any shot.
Well, you would think so. You would think so. But again, it would be that they can't print off fast enough or an exact match of what would need to go here if they replace the glass. So they rip all of it. That's my assumption. You could maybe argue, hey, you could maybe argue that.
So that's kind of the argument there, is that the cleanup crew is actually here because they need to replace all of the paneled glass because the one was shattered, might not have the specific dimensions, so now the whole thing's got to be replaced. Or maybe it's easier to hide that, guys, and not maybe catch a random campus walk, or, you know, someone just randomly walking campus. They stroll through, they take a photo of a one singular glass pane being fixed. Then it's a bit more of a smoking gun there. I did see a few people talk about the text messages. Yes. I do think the text messages don't even need to be looked at, I think, on its face when you see that he went from, well, I guess you would need some of the Discord logs and the text messages, but you have him going from confessing to his family, right? Or having like some heated expression towards his family, confess to his father, whatever, that leads to his dad taking him. But the moment that he ends up in police custody, he's not telling anybody. But then in one of the other Discord logs, like he's not cooperating, then it's either one of the text messages or the Discord logs, he's talking about, well, I wish I would have just kept this until of old age. So a lot of it's nonsensical. And I do think people are right when they look at the text messages. It does look like somebody else wrote them, or that ChatGPT at best was used to try to generate something that would be some level of real. And again, it's just another grain of sand in this massive heap. It's hard to make sense of it. We'll go ahead and go a little bit longer because they're going to get into the second conclusive contention, which is the earpiece, which is around the 12.5-minute mark, so about 2 minutes away from that aspect. We'll go ahead and let him finish his thoughts here on the window being busted.
Let me find this image. This image is that they wanted to do this memorial and not have UVU stuff in the background, but okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me, I know that you're moving forward in your linear timeline, but bear with me because I want to go back to what you covered before for my.
So I think if we go back, Kirk would be sitting like here. So here's the auditorium here. I believe that's the correct setup. Yes. Kirk was positioned right up here, so it's slightly elevated with a little bit of room for people around and behind him. You can see it. You can see down here at this bottom angle, this frame in particular. But let me pull this up here. Somebody was asking, what is his argument here? Let me find it. Where the hell is that? Who asked? It's from Raphael. He says, wait, so the story from this random guy is the guy was above, shot him, and the bullet ricocheted from the ground and hit the neck. No. I believe his argument is closer to the fact that we are not particularly sure where exactly he was positioned on this side, but that what he believes conclusively is that the shot did not come from the front, the 12 o'clock of Charlie Kirk. The shot came from the right-hand side. But what angle of the right-hand side and the elevation, does matter. So again, if this guy is, sitting up higher up, right? Let me get the mouse on screen. I probably can't see it. But if he is sitting a little bit higher up or elevated a bit positioned, shooting down through the neck, I think it's extremely possible that you would end up catching one of these concrete pieces or hitting up through here. Or based on the angle, it hits the ground and shoots right back up, sends a different direction. But no, not a random guy. This is the guy whose video is being blown up, who's being shown around everywhere, and is a former sniper. So I definitely trust him. Like if I was to have to pick between the government, Discord, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, or Zeb Boykin, okay, I trust Zeb Boykin. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, I'm not going to trust the government. I don't trust any pundit anymore, period. I think everyone's just lying to you constantly, nonstop. I'm going to trust the guy who I've had multiple conversations with and who I talked with even off air, showing me some of these extra photos. Is it extremely conclusive? No, but I think it's enough that it does need to be explored and needs to be addressed by the Trump administration as soon as possible. So picking up a little bit forward, we'll get past where Owen wants to move off. We'll get into the second bigger piece of contention here.
Determine that to be a fact earlier today. You can see the earpiece. So what the conclusion that I've reached is that the bullet comes in, it jolts his earpiece, and I think you've reached the same conclusion. And then the earpiece wire flings up. That's when we see the shirt anomaly. That's when the microphone goes flying off, and then the exit wound in the front. So I guess I would just ask you this: how confident are you that that is an exit wound, and why?
Extremely confident that it's an exit wound. This is what you're talking about here with the earpiece. So when I initially saw this, I assumed it was blood, right? So if we're shooting from the front, we have an entry wound here, we have blood out the back. It would probably be a lot more than that, but that's what we have. But the problem is when it's out here, it comes back. And so that's what kind of made me question what's actually going on here. And then we got to the side.
I had another side angle. Yeah. There's another side angle. I might be able to find another side angle that it is like complete. It completely shows that it's an earpiece. I don't know if it's the same one you have, but you can.
Yeah, I mean, this one does it too. And that being said, I mean, we have, like I said, we have this one. But the problem is that if it's an entry wound, anybody can Google this. Any amateur hunter knows what an entry wound looks like. I mean, you can Google it, entry versus exit wound, and say, oh, okay. That's quite literally, obviously, that anybody saying it's entry is dumb, right? So if you have a slug-sized entry, what does the exit look like?
And this is another thing, too. When you have a big population of people who kind of know ballistics, right? Whether it's like the common man hunter, or it's military experience or police experience, and then you have a lot of other people outside of any kind of military or gun or firearm training, anything. They're just like, they're going off of Hollywood, right? They're going off of like what they think happens in movies, whereas it typically can turn out to be very, very, very different, in real life, in person.
Right. I mean, if the entry wound looks like a slug, Charlie shouldn't have a head anymore.
Hey, let me show this video. I don't know if you've seen this angle yet.
So that's the argument there, right? If it was 30-06, which is Ebb thinks it was 5.56, possibly could even be 3.08 or 7.62, that what you would be seeing from Kirk would be a lot more than what we saw. Basically, in layman terms, like video would be a lot more graphic.
It's to me, this is the most determinative angle. That it is indeed an earpiece. If you look at this is right before.
And the reason why this matters, and the reason why they're highlighting this, is because the argument right now from those who are like on the official narrative side is that is supposed to be like blood splatter. So that is supposed to be the exit wound, if you will, and what's coming out of it. But they're arguing no, that it's actually his earpiece that's wrapped around his ear. It's just like snapping weirdly, obviously, because his head's making a very, very quick motion.
In fact, now just so people get the full explainer here, and you explain this in your video. He has an earpiece in, the wire wraps around his ear. It goes around the back of his neck to this side. The wire then goes here, wraps around the front. And this is where he clips the mic to his wire. That's a common stabilization thing that people will do in media. And then the wire goes down here to whatever the source feed is. So what you're going to see in this spot here, I don't know if you've seen this yet. To me, it's the most conclusive of the earpiece. All right. So here's the moment of impact. You can see the earpiece comes out, right? Here's the earpiece that comes out. I think it was an entry right here that forced and jolted the earpiece. So now it's out. So you have your first moment where the wire is jilted.
So then the next thing they go on to explain, which is the kind of shirt anomaly, which is that his shirt, the reason why you see this kind of weird anomaly here is because being shot here, the tension from that goes all the way through the cord, causing the cord to come up through his shirt, which makes it simulates that vapor wave, that vapor trail. You know, it simulates that concussion blast he's supposed to be getting from such a powerful round, when in fact, what that actually is really just I'm of this belief too, that it's the cord snapping. And the cord snapping makes it seem as if he got hit with a very, very strong and powerful round, although it wasn't.
Okay, second frame. Now the earpiece is farther out of his ear, and the wire is lifting up the shirt more, and it looks like even the microphone that's been clipped has actually come off of the shirt. But this is the same wire, and then obviously the earpiece is out of frame now. Then you see the wound hole here, and it looks like the wire has basically snapped back into a resting position after this point.
So that's kind of the bulk of what they had discussed, with a few other elements being the body armor angle and the smoking gun, which is, where is that camera that's behind Charlie? Now I'll scroll up so you can see what they had said, because I'm not sure if they're completely accurate on this, but maybe they are, but I'll let you guys hear for themselves. If you go, and they might be scrubbing these photos, because no joke, I have one in my intro that I just made this morning. I just had a new one. I wanted to make a shorter one. I tried looking for that same photo today for the thumbnail, and I could not find the photo. You can find a lot of high definition photos of Charlie Kirk in different positions, whether he's like bent over, or he's leaning, or he's like walking up to give somebody a hug. You can see there is just no, all that he has, the only thing that he has is literally a chain that's probably a bit thicker than mine that he's wearing a cross. Or whether it's a crucifix, rosary, something along those lines, that's what he's got. And if there was body armor, it should be a lot more noticeable than what it is. And I think there's one specific angle that's very damning of him bent over, and you can see it's tight on his shoulders, and there's no creases, no nothing, anything. So what we will cover, because I do think this is very important, is the smoking gun. Is this camera behind Charlie? Where is it? Who is the guy who took it? Why do we not know who the guy who took it? And if it's somebody who's close to the scene, then they should probably work for TPUSA, or they're probably a part of the security detail. And if they're not, why isn't TPUSA freaking out about some random guy who went and grabbed the camera? Where is this footage at? So let's find it. It's going to be at the 22-minute mark here. So we'll skip forward a bit to cover a little bit more. Be right about here. They're going to discuss the camera. So start about right here.
Asking, if I had the equipment to do it, I would, but I just don't, and so I can't.
Yeah, and I think too, again, like I said, to me, this is a community effort. And I'm not going to hear these voices that tell me to shut up. I'm not going to hear these voices that tell me to trust the government. I don't trust the government. And I think that, if the government wants to earn my trust back with this story, then perhaps they can do that in the future. But to me, the biggest smoking gun, no pun intended, but the biggest smoking gun is the footage that they're withholding from us. That camera right behind Charlie, I counted at least 3 HD cameras that were filming. So that's the part that I'm not sure of. I've heard it said a couple of times that there is more than just the back camera. Sounds like Owen's got a number, 3. And on top of that, additionally, too, is that these 3 cameras weren't streaming, they were recording, meaning that they didn't have live feeds. They were just all offline feeds, probably meant to be used for montages or other promo or just general kind of TPUSA content usage. That caught my attention. Live streaming, but filming 4K. So, I mean, you're going to see everything in 4K, master frame rate. Like, you can actually see it all go down in 4K in live time. And we have not seen any of that footage. But specifically, the camera right behind Charlie, that would be the one that tells the whole story. I mean, that would be the one that would be the most conclusive. And yet we don't get any of that footage. And guess what? When they raided the crime scene immediately after, that was the first thing they took down.
The very first thing they took was the SD card out of that camera.
So that's when Zeb said they took the SD card. I have not seen that. That was the first time I'd ever been aware that supposedly the SD card had been messed with. I'd only seen the camera be moved. So then it does bring him out. So maybe it's not TPUSA, it's not a rando. So is it the authorities, right? Was it a cop who was just there on campus? Was it campus police? Where did this camera go? Who's got it? What's the chain of custody? And truth be told, I think now at this point, that footage is probably gone or destroyed, or if not, the camera was probably destroyed, in some level. But it is curious, right? Especially when we have he's in broad daylight doing this. Now, I don't have the video pulled up directly, but you can just find it very easily. Man takes camera, TPUSA. We'll find it in like 2 seconds. And here it is. So this guy says a man in a gray shirt. So it seems like he's still not, there's no identity out for who this individual is. But you can see this very clearly. We don't need the sound here.
Say the active shooter, Charlie Kirk.
So that's the camera. That's the one that's right behind him. Now, I do think it's odd that as this guy is taking that camera down, this one's being moved too. But as I thought about it, I was like, maybe there's 2 guys taking down cameras and just bad timing, and the second guy's doing the same thing the other guy is. But who is this individual? This guy doesn't seem bothered by what he's doing. And if I'm standing underneath this tent, like, and this is just me talking, but if I'm standing underneath a tent like this, it's probably because like either I'm supposed to be or somebody told me I was allowed to be. So that lets me think that they have some connection, whether it's directly to TPUSA or their campus police. I'm going to be honest, the guy don't look like campus police. He looks like he is like a camera guy for TPUSA. So the question is then, who is this? And why do we not know now? Why do we not know? When was this video posted? This one was posted 8 hours ago, but I know that. Okay, they got better photos here. So whoever this dude is, that appears to be the one in the photo. I'm assuming this one is the guy standing next to him. But it's confusing. Like, where is this guy? Maybe there's not more photo evidence up, but I did see other. I don't want to scroll the timeline looking at Charlie Kirk stuff. But why do we not have it? I feel like that's a very easy thing to answer from either the authorities or TPUSA. So what is this? I think this is a huge element that needs to be addressed immediately, because not only is it the fact that it's gone this long and no one said anything from either source of authority, but secondly, what that camera could potentially hold, which is a direct answer to what happened to the back of his head, and a better, clearer idea possibly of which was the entry wound, what was the exit wound. And that is a good point too, from a tactical dish soap. You'd think that they'd leave all that stuff up because it's a crime scene. There was nothing sacred that day, because in the same light we're thinking about this too, also understand that it was like shortly thereafter, some guy like jumped the little barrier and stole hats and threw them into the crowd. Like, nothing is ultimately sacred in this country anymore. Like, people don't know how to act or behave. It's the same way like when Nick talks about like when you're in line behind a black woman. It's like, dude, don't expect excuse me means a damn thing. People just don't know how to act. They don't know how to behave. Like the whole idea of like being polite in a civil society, and we're all kind of like, we do these things to have a cohesive environment. I haven't seen that since like I was a kid. I think that's just gone anymore. But that's some of the actionable stuff there. I'm in Zeb's camp. I think that if maybe there's a second shooter, or that this guy's entirely a patsy, or maybe it was some kind of setup to obfuscate who really did it. I think no one has ultimately addressed George Zinn. Like that thing is, why was there a guy screaming, "I'll do it again. I shot him." Right? Who is this guy? And then who's the second guy that I don't even think we have a photo of, but was supposedly walking around campus with like a BB gun? And then you have the Discord logs. And what I will say too, this is a secondary kind of a side note. When Donald Trump, I think it was like the second day, it was like the day right after or 2 days after. I mean, they're talking to him and he just goes, "Oh yeah, Kirk is pretty bad. Anyways, you see that building over there?" Like, that was just kind of a wild response. And then to see the Pam Bondi and both Trump agree with her too, over the hate speech and what's to be allowed and not to be allowed. And then you see JD Vance takes the helm of TPUSA the next day, and then Daily Wire does it the day after that. It's just a lot. It's just a lot happening, a lot moving, and it's hard to tell what is actually reasonable to point fingers at and what's not reasonable to point fingers at. And so we're kind of in the dark. That's kind of where it's at. The next question, though, is what would they be hiding? So let's, if the Israel narrative, we can kind of understand. We get that. So if it's the official narrative, then what would they be hiding? Why would the three-letter agencies want to take out Charlie Kirk then? Right? Because if it was just this crazy leftist, that it would be in the administration's interest to just drop everything, be transparent, and then start going hard against the left. But that's not happening. So that's the question that I can't answer, which is if it is a three-letter agency, there's no foreign involvement, then what was the goal? And then you think about what's happening. So what is happening right now? The dissident right is infighting. There's now people actively taking pot shots at Nick. There's a breakup right now, a schism forming, if you will, over this particular issue, over what people are now thinking that, people are being paid off and likewise. And on the other side of it, what I've mentioned multiple times is also Pam Bondi mentioning the hate speech aspect. And then you zoom out and then you go, Project Esther. And you go, oh yeah. That thing that was formulated by the Heritage Foundation, the conservative think tank, on the anniversary of October 7th, which is largely a massive project meant to be scaled across all of America to limit your speech over anti-Semitism. And then I'm thinking, was this a ploy to two birds, one stone? You basically you trim both the far right and the far left at the same time. You bring everybody back closer to a more establishment position. That's kind of where my head's at right now, to be honest. From Marcus is when Tim Pool tweets Nick, calling him the voice of reason, no lie, that worries me. Yeah, very confusing. I am not saying it's not confusing right now. What I am saying is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Can't. I can't. I'm appalled. I'm a little pulled back. So if you were coming here to expect me to be able to back up and contextualize Nick's position, I can't. I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm telling you, I don't even know if he believes it. But man, it definitely is not the official narrative. That's for sure. So what I will, though, is I want to go to my bookmarks, actually, because I think this is actually super important. Well, actually, let me hold on. I'm getting a couple messages to make sure it's nothing crazy. Okay, we're fine. What I would like to do is I bookmarked this because Myron actually talked about it earlier today. And I think if anything, this is what we're going to see happen first. And on two elements. Let me rope in some other stuff too, because again, like I said, if a lot of people are telling you look left, a lot of people are telling you look right, I'm telling you, it's it kind of defeats the purpose of all of it. Is if it's people are saying look left, look right, I'm telling you it's got to be either on the floor or on the ceiling. It's somewhere where people are not looking. So here's three quick ones right now. Discord, Steam, Twitch, and Reddit are all going to be facing in front of the House Oversight Committee, largely, I would imagine, to own up or to speak about, and what it says here, the radicalization of online users after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Then, after the M2 algorithm update was put out by TikTok, that a guy got a few warnings out. I don't even know if I have a TikTok account. I should probably check, to be honest, to make sure it's still there. Well, it's not like it matters and reuse it. But Oracle and Andreessen Horowitz who are linked here again from legitimate targets who are both linked to the CIA and the Israeli government and the IDF intelligence agencies. I have a very, very, very bad feeling there is going to be a conservative-led charge to shore up what is allowed on free speech, what is allowed on social platforms. And there is a through line there where I can see it, because this was brought up by Dave Smith. So Dave Smith and Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, were two of the most recent people who went in they shared their text messages from some of the last ones they got from Charlie Kirk. And I think the biggest takeaway, and I think they're right on this, is that from the way that Kirk was interacting and willing to engage with those who are like very anti-Israel, showed that he wasn't Ben Shapiro. It showed that there was some distance between Kirk and Ben Shapiro. Now, from where me and everyone else here, for the most part, where we're looking, that distance don't mean nothing. But I think it means something here, where the aspect of where, on one hand, I do think that if Project Esther, like if Charlie Kirk understood the end goal of Project Esther, he would oppose that. Everybody knows Charlie was very adamantly free speech. And whereas where I would see Ben Shapiro would be willing to go, oh yes, we should clamp down on free speech. Anti-Semitism, let's use the IHRA's random changing definition that changes every 3 days and has 40 editors, right? So then I thought about it from that angle, and I was like, so yeah, maybe it's not the Israel angle of like, he's not going to have full 100% alignment of support, but maybe it is an alignment of the sense that he would be a huge barrier for implementing Project Esther, especially being one of their guys, if you will. So maybe that's the angle. Maybe the angle is that Charlie Kirk, for as good and as useful as what he was, ultimately still stood in the way, because for as much as they want him to be, he was ultimately still at the end of the day an American and not a Jew. So that could be it. And then I did think it was pretty cool that Myron Gaines, of all people, was able to talk about this a bit. So we're going to play this here. So this is Myron, because he does believe there is mass censorship coming, and I do too, and I have for quite some time. So let's go back here, and let's rip this here from Myron Gaines.
So running bots and offering to pay influencers isn't enough. They're also going to need to censor the influencers that are critical of Israel. You cannot run a successful propaganda campaign without censorship. So you're going to need to put money behind the people that do support you. You're going to need to put money behind bots that make it look like your support is bigger than it really is. And then the last step is shutting up the people that are the most critical of you. So I think sometime this year or next year, there is going to be a clampdown on Israel critical podcasters, influencers, talk show hosts, etc. Where's the censorship going to take place? It's going to take place definitely on YouTube, definitely on Twitch, definitely on Facebook, on Instagram, Google. I also predict it'll leak into Kick and, even alternative, even X potentially. The only place I think you'll be safe is going to be Rumble, honestly, with this. Because I even foresee X clamping down on this. Right? I mean, to this day, by the way, FYI, to this day, me, Nick Fuentes, Jake Shields, Suleiman, Dr. Lupus, who else? Lucas Gage, Stu Peters, a bunch of accounts, Sam Parker, a bunch of big Twitter accounts critical of Israel. We're still not verified, chat, and we're still demonetized.
And this has also been bubbling ever since a lot of like think about how I even got to where I'm at with my channel. A lot of people just essentially basically said, they can't believe that Nick is just on YouTube now, right? Like there's just, how is he just, it makes no sense given the history. And so a lot of people also felt like, is this a trap? Or are they just trying to encourage more of people like us who have basically had to hide the last 100 years because we will get annihilated and attacked and our lives destroyed for even believing anything that's not current thing. And now I see this and what's gone on. I do think was this not the play, but rather a step in the big play to, once again, this is how we do it every time, manufacture consensus for something 2 weeks ago we would have disagreed with. But they use a crisis to take advantage of the emotions, herein manipulating you like a woman, to do something you otherwise wouldn't because you were in a heated moment. You were in like a very, a passionate place. Because all you can think about in that moment is like, yes, these guys do need to pay. But really, you're just signing off on the fact that that power is now able to be used and wielded by the government. And then instead of just getting just a leftist, they're also getting you too. So we'll go ahead and let this play out the rest of it. I'm curious what else he has to say here.
So even on X, there are costs for being critical of Israel. Though you can tweet, you still get your reach hit. You still can't get verified. You're still demonetized, etc. So I do not trust even X to maintain their free speech that they claim. All right? So that's what I predict. And then on top of that, we know that anti-Semitism laws are getting passed. Okay? They tried it with the colleges. It was successful. A bunch of people have gotten deported. Visas have got denied. Kids have been arrested, put into deportation proceedings. Marco Rubio is talking about withdrawing passports for political speech that they don't like. What's her name? Pam Blondie, right? Literally came out and said hate speech is not free speech yesterday or 2 days ago.
I had myself muted, my bad. And Donald Trump backed her up. I can't remember verbatim what exactly was said by Donald Trump, but he did back her up. He said, "Oh yes, something along the lines of like, yeah, they say very nasty things, something to that effect." DKB said, "Where can we see the Kirk video? I can't find it anymore. I think it's been stripped from the internet." X is probably your best bet. If it's not on X, probably on Rumble somewhere. But more often than not, from all of the mainstream sources, I would imagine they've scrubbed it. They're not going to want any kind of graphic content like that. Even outside nefarious, means they probably just don't want the graphic content there. This is just not true. I don't know. Maybe you're just not on YouTube that often. My entire channel was basically built off the back of making clips from Nick's content. And there's like a small ecosystem of it. There's I think the other girl who I know who does it as consistently probably as I do is that girl, Casey. And she runs 2 channels. If you want to find her, it's Bring the Asteroid News. Now, I will say, you also said, the same guy actually, let me go scroll up. You said something else earlier that I thought was retarded. He said there is zero evidence Kirk was turning against Israel. That I find on its face to be, it's nuanced, for one. The fact that he called, which I think they changed the wording of it on the video after the fact, but he called for a focus group. One of the things I did cover, at the time, I even thought it was to save face. I didn't buy that there was an actual intentional attempt from Kirk himself to want to know what should the difference of messaging be for Israel. And, he hosted this big kind of conference. You have the clip from PBD, which is back in like 2023 or 2024, where he says, I got to be careful how I say this, ethnic cleansing. I think the fact that Nick did confirm that $150 million deal, or at least confirmed that he had heard from it from 4 other sources outside the main person who'd reported it, does give some level of, was he, even if it wasn't on the aspect of he wasn't pro-Israel enough, was it even on the sense of like, I don't want this guy to buy my company because I want full control of it, right? Remove all of the ideologies out of it. It could just be something as simple as that. It's just the reality of is Candace and Tucker are basically using it to build a mythos. They're using it to design something that like is not there. giving it a mythology. Now, I will say, I do think that I fall back to where I was at before the assassination. I do think a lot of that possibly was ultimately to just be like, if I don't say something at all when I'm getting maybe 40% of my audience is demanding I either debate Nick or I speak to something like this. And how many times do we know that they're chameleons, right? These people, they can act like our guys and do things that make it seem like they are providing a pressure relief valve for us. They're opening their platform to something we have an issue about. But how often is that simply just meant to be an appeasement tool? It's meant to kind of cool off the temperature a little bit with clearly no intention to actually do anything in the first place. I've just been too abused by so many liars in this space to really give anybody any level or honesty about, in terms of trust or trustworthiness. And especially off the back of the one person who I do think that, you can listen to, that you will get the majority of the right answer and the right solutions the majority of the time, has now kind of sent me back spinning a little bit, because not to say like I'm disappointed or expected more, but to say that where he left it has gotten me extremely confused. That's funny. I appreciate that, but man, I probably could not speak nearly as well, to be honest with you. But we will finish this last minute here and go ahead and let Myron wrap it up. But that is my concern here. Back to this video. The concern being is what waits us on the other side of everything that's occurred is a massive clampdown of censorship.
So I see the writing on the wall, and as someone that's been talking about this for over 2 years now and understands very well how they censor when you talk about this topic, there's no way they're going to allow this to continue. There's no way. Because like I said before, you guys got to understand, Israel is in a critical time in its history. You understand? October 7th was a trigger point to allow it to wage a war against all of its enemies. And they need America's support to take on Iran. They do. They cannot do it themselves. Hell, they can't do it themselves just to exist. And they know that U.S. support for them is waning. So they need to get as much done as they can now while also securing the youth. Because the people now that are young, that are critical of Israel, are going to become lawyers, doctors, and eventually legislators and politicians.
This has largely been what has been the battlefield for American politics for the last couple of years. The whole thing of the Tim Pool and Nick Fuentes blowing up and them arguing was on the premise of when Nick basically attacked him, should have attacked him, when Tim Pool has like this special Chatham House Rules secret meeting with a bunch of other influencers in Netanyahu. And the reason for why Tim's saying why he went is he goes, well, on a 20-year basis, if these trends continue for pro-Israel support, there won't be any pro-Israel support. But on the same hand, we'll get on his podcast and say, I care about what an American is. And it's like, really? I don't know an American at all in my personal life that I believe only cares about America that would give the slightest damn about what Israel had to say. A lie on its face. And Nagim, I'm just going to assume that you just aren't on YouTube at all, brother, but you're just entirely wrong. Just type in Nick Fuentes. Just type in Nick Fuentes Israel. Go to OTO. There's 110 different channels now. The only one out of all of us that I did see get struck was Shameless Berg, and that was because he was legitimately flying too close to the sun. I mean, he was probably monetizing stuff that you can't monetize, and you're like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there is a level of like, you do have to play inside the rules a little bit. But not in the sense that Tim Pool does it, because Tim Pool says that and then just bends over and takes it by a bunch of Israelis. Like, that's not how we're supposed to be doing this. But the sentiment is true. He just lies about the fact that he's not doing it. That because, and again, from anybody who probably just joined, I've not been able to pay attention to much at all. I wanted to be able to at least offer my thoughts and get myself out there. Tomorrow I'll be back full speed ahead, ready to open my eyes to a bit more. I'd like to see a bit more. I would like to listen to Alex Jones. I want to hear more from Harrison Smith. I find him to be a third-party actor in this narrative, especially because he was one of the first people who had opened the premise that there possibly was some talk from Charlie Kirk among his personal friends, not associates, that he was feeling a certain type of way about the donor class that was behind him and the kind of hostility he was feeling there. And I also do want to, I probably will have to catch up on where Candace is at and see if there's anything to actually pick through there, but, you know, who knows. And I do think, I can't remember who had said it, I think Stacking Coins said it. I can't not take that into consideration. I think anyone who would permanently rule out and not even give a slightest bit of thought that possibly there is some kind of synthetic element that you just know that there's not a gun on the other side of that camera when Nick went live the last couple of nights. I mean, you're lying. You don't know that. You could be confident in that, but I'm not, and I really don't know. I have my own family, my own kids, and I'm not willing to throw a huge amount of stake into something when it immediately gives me it can't pass the smell test. If that causes people to be angry, so be it. I'll never be anything less than nuts with you, or less than honest with you. But it's funny. He says you're nuts, man. Dog, you're either a boomer or you're just playing coy. Just like, I don't understand why people have to just be so petty like that. I don't understand. It's very simple. Here, you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to do it for this guy. All right, everybody, we're going to do a lesson. Thank you for the super chat. Titan says, the devil is always in the details. 999. I appreciate that very much, brother. Thank you. Massive heart to that. All right, we're going to do this for Nog. Hyjin says, I'm confused. You think, Nick? I'm saying I don't know. Like, I am saying I don't know. I just don't know. And I'm not willing to stake anything on anyone's word. I don't know. There's the same way that when Andrew Tate says women are whores, you go, my body knows it's true. I didn't have to think about it. My body just immediately goes, I know it's true. The same way when Nick goes like, and look at all this influence. Look at all what all these Jews are pushing for. You go, you feel it. You go, I feel that in my soul. It's true. When he spoke in the last couple of nights, I've not felt that. I just haven't. It wasn't there for me to just immediately go like, yeah, that's it. That's right. That was the missing angle. And I would be lying to you. I would legitimately be lying to you if I straight up said like, oh no, yeah, I think Nick's right. That's what I was there. Yep. I just don't feel that way. And I don't know what else to tell you beyond that, besides I think we're being lied from everybody. Now, I will caveat that with maybe Nick's lying because he feels like his life is in danger. So there is that aspect. The reward money from Bill Ackman, right? The $1.2 million. It was to the father, I believe, but supposedly he had turned it down. But again, I didn't want to cover anything I hadn't fully been able to actually vet or be substantive. I think the big thing though was from Zeb, and I would follow that if you've not seen that video already. I do think that the Ballistics tell an entirely different story than what the narrative does. So with that, that's where I'll leave it. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure other people are probably dropping more explosive and more on the point news. I'll get back on the ball through this week. I'll probably end up working this weekend too. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody for being here. And again, huge shout out to Zeb and Josh VanDerNoord and Outside the Overton for the success. I really, really hope that opens itself up for Josh to be able to quit his boomer conservative radio job. So pray for that, because I'm sure that would be huge for Josh's life and his transition into doing this. And I appreciate all of you guys for being here. And I appreciate if you don't agree with my takes. I wouldn't expect you to agree with me 100%. Because then you're probably just a parrot. Critically think, analyze, don't take everything in its word. And with that, Christ is King, as always. Make sure you carry your cross the way that Charlie did. you know, in the sense of what it means to be above reproach. That is one thing I will highly and always respect about Charlie Kirk. Deport Cash Patel, ban one from public life. And guys, I really hope we have some answers by the end of the week. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Take care.